Hey guys, welcome back to more HOA and legal advice stories. What would you do if your own uncle stole your entire family's inheritance without you even being aware of it? Let's dive right into the video. And the first one is titled, "Found out I was a major part of my grandma's will and was supposed to get my part at 25 and 30. Posted on r/legaladvice. I am 38 and have received nothing. So to start, her will was done in Washington and I knew I was in my grandma's will but didn't know to what capacity, so I had to go contact the county the will was done in to get a copy. I received the will in the mail this week and was shocked to find out how big of a part I had in the will, but didn't start until I was 22. The assets were to be split into 3 when I was 22, and my 2 uncles were supposed to get a third each and the rest was to be saved for me. When I was 25, I was to get a half of what was left, and when I was 30, I was to get the rest of it and the trust was to be terminated. The estate was closed in 2005, I was 19, I got 0 notification and actually no notification of anything about this. The original lawyer no longer works for the firm that he was at, he is now an attorney for a city in Washington. The lawyer he passed all his files to passed away in 2018, and to say this has been an adventure is an understatement. Ended up getting in touch with the bar association with that county and they gave me the name of someone, but still waiting to hear back if it's conflict of interest or something. I've spoken to a lot of law offices this week, it seems like. I've reached out to the executor of the estate, which is one of the uncles that was to get 1/3 of the estate, but there was radio silence. Can anyone help me? I just want what's mine, or if there's nothing left, I would like to know why. Comment number 1, you need to hire a legal malpractice attorney. You will be suing the other attorney for the city of Port Angeles, Washington. And frankly, I'm kind of shocked he would probate a will and screw someone over like this. You will likely also be suing your uncles. Comment number 2, if you don't get what you were supposed to with the interest from the executor of the will, I hope you can use the other dead uncle's rate to claw out the remaining part, since they both split the profits. I don't know if it is possible or even legal, but I sincerely hope you get made full. I would also sue the lawyer who has now moved since he made the mistake. Comment number 3, if I were you, my first step would be to contact the court that oversaw your grandmother's estate and obtain all of the info you can. There should have been periodic statements filed with the court with copies to the beneficiary of the estate. And yeah guys, if someone stole your inheritance essentially like this, what would you do if you were in OP's shoes? Let me know in the comments, and by the way, don't forget to like the video because that would help me tremendously. Thank you so much. Also, the next step will be to contact the trustee of the trust to obtain a full accounting and forensic audit if necessary and get their take on what did or didn't take place. If there was a departure from the direction of the one of your grandmother's will and the trust created as a result of that will for your benefit. Once you got all this information, you will know the next step to take and whether retaining counsel to go after the trustee, attorneys involved in the matter, or the individuals who received your inheritance, and if the assets and/or funds are not still held by the trust. This is not intended as legal advice, but rather practical and/or legal information for your consideration. Update to the story. I guess it's time to update this. I wish there was a better update, but essentially, my uncle won. And I got nothing. I finally found a lawyer that would take on the case, and we started out with a letter that essentially told him that we know and we demand accounting. He responded by letting her know that he received the letter, and since he was on a Mormon mission, he doesn't have access to it at the moment. My lawyer then received a phone call from a lawyer in the Tri-Cities WA area and was speaking on behalf of him, but not his lawyer. My lawyer was told that the amount I would have gotten was used to raise me. She died when I was 12 and my dad also had a trust, and they were given a good amount of money every month as child support to raise me also, so that was a lie I'm pretty sure, and that there is nothing left of it. She was also told that my uncle doesn't want any family strife. If you would have paid me when I was supposed to get paid, there wouldn't be any. My uncle never formally responded, so there's really nothing that can be done. If anyone has some ideas, I'd be willing to listen, but there's not much I can do at this point. And the next one is an HOA Karen story, which is titled, HOA Karen gets proven wrong after claiming the HOA owns my pool. So I like keeping life simple. Kids, a job that pays the bills, a backyard where my family basically lives in the summer, and yes, a pool I saved for like a maniac. It's not an Olympic pool, but it is mine, the place where my kids cannonball, my wife pretends to dislike my playlist, and where I can sometimes forget about bills, emails, and Karen-level nonsense. The house has been in the family for a while. My grandparents built it back in the late 70s before the HOA neighborhood sprouted around us. Legally, my lot was specifically excluded from the HOA development when they created it. County surveys and property records confirm it. If anyone tells you otherwise, they're either lying or have never actually looked at real paperwork. The pool itself is the pride of the backyard, fenced, clean, and maintained like I have a personal vendetta against algae. Neighbors often compliment it, some subtly, others in that "I'm not jealous at all" way. I like that, it is mine. And years after my grandparents built the house and a few years after I inherited it from them, the HOA subdivision was built around the property, complete with newsletters, rules about gutter colors, and an unholy amount of self-importance. I've never been a member, I never had to be, my property predates all that nonsense. But of course, I pay my taxes, I follow the law and enjoy summer without an HOA looking over my shoulder, which of course did not stop someone from trying. Enter Karen, the kind of person who treats an HOA like it is her personal kingdom, complete with measuring tape and "I know better than everyone" energy. She has a talent for finding problems that don't exist. Problems like noise, water features, pool parties. If it exists in a yard near her, it is fair game. And since my pool is large, blue and very much mine, it is a target. I never expected the situation to escalate beyond passive-aggressive flyers. I mean, after all, ignoring Karen seemed easier than reasoning with someone who genuinely believes that HOA authority magically extends outside its borders, but I was wrong. Very wrong. It started on a Tuesday morning. I was outside skimming the pool and enjoying the sun when I noticed movement near the property line. But of course, it was Karen standing just outside my fence, marching up to the gate like she owned the neighborhood, clipboard in hand, shoes clicking like a tiny gavel on the sidewalk. "Good morning, we need to talk about your pool fence," she announced. Okay. About what exactly? "It is not up to code. HOA regulations state it must be exactly this high, exactly this color, exactly—" Wait, sorry Karen, but I'm not part of your HOA. My property predates the subdivision and legally it's excluded. She laughed, actually laughed, like I just told her the earth was flat. "Everyone here is part of the HOA, whether you want it to be or not." I held up my hands like I was defusing a bomb. Look, I've gotten the papers to prove the HOA agreement was optional for pre-existing properties, and I opted out of that. Well, technically my grandparents did, but same difference, right? Karen scoffed as if the universe might rewrite itself if she simply squinted hard enough. "We will see about that. This is not over." She turned on her heel and marched back towards her house, but not before muttering something about enforcement action. I shrugged and went back to skimming the pool. If she wanted to waste her time pretending she had authority over me, that was her problem. And I figured that would be the end of it. Just a brief misunderstanding and maybe a little HOA overreach, nothing major. But I was very, very wrong. A week later, I had a stack of notices waiting for me in the mailbox. All of them cited the pool fence violations and daily fines accruing in bold letters, complete with threats of liens. I could almost hear her smirk through the paper. I left them on the counter and poured coffee, shaking my head at the absurdity. Karen even posted on the neighborhood Facebook group saying, "Dangerous pool fence. Children at risk. HOA action required." Her followers typed up supportive comments, and a few neighbors bought into it, worried I would become some kind of rogue pool menace. People who had never even seen my fence were suddenly experts on pool safety regulations. I took a deep breath and reminded myself that I had the law, the documents, and common sense on my side. Karen, on the other hand, had confidence, and lots of it. The kind of confidence that comes from never being told no. When she announced an emergency board meeting to address the pool issue, I knew the absurdity had officially escalated from funny to full-on sitcom. And I was apparently gonna have front row tickets, whether I wanted them or not. After the first round of notices, Karen didn't slow down. If anything, she sped up, and every few days a new envelope would appear, each one more threatening than the last. "Daily fines will accrue," it said. "A property lien to be filed. Immediate compliance required." I stacked them neatly on the counter like trophies, sipping my coffee and shaking my head. One afternoon, I noticed the neighborhood Facebook group blowing up again. Karen had posted a long rant about my pool being a hazard to children and insisting the fence did not meet HOA standards and that the pool was somehow a community amenity. She even tagged some neighbors she knew like drama, trying to rally support for her crusade. I messaged a few reasonable people privately. Hey, just so you know, I'm not in the HOA, the pool is mine. Everything's permitted and up to code with the county. Feel free to check the county records if you want. Some nodded, some laughed quietly at her audacity. A couple even admitted they had suspected she was overreaching, but didn't want to get involved. But Karen did not stop. She started drafting a formal announcement for an emergency HOA board meeting to address what she called the rogue pool situation. The flyer was dramatic with bold letters, exclamation points, and even a clip art caution sign. My inbox filled with messages from curious neighbors who wanted to witness the spectacle. Some were genuinely concerned, others just wanted the entertainment. I decided it was time to end Karen's little crusade. I took time off work and went to the county recorder's office. I got certified copies of everything, the original property survey from when my grandparents bought the land, plat maps showing the subdivision boundaries when the HOA was created, and the HOA's own incorporation documents from 15 years ago. Everything confirmed what I already knew. My lot had been specifically excluded when the development was created, and the subdivision literally curved around my property because it predated their plans. I organized everything in a binder and made a few extra copies just in case Karen tried to pull something. Then I did something she probably didn't expect. I waited. No Facebook arguments, no angry emails, no defensive posts. I just let her keep digging herself deeper while I prepared my evidence. Sometimes the best strategy is to let your opponent defeat themselves. By the time her emergency meeting rolled around, I was ready. I had all the facts, the calm demeanor, and the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are absolutely right. The day of the emergency meeting arrived and the community center was packed with people. Word had spread fast and at least 40 neighbors showed up to watch drama unfold. Karen was in her element, standing at the front with her binder, a printed agenda, and that smug smile that said she expected total vindication. She started with a PowerPoint presentation. Seriously. She had made slides about community standards, property values, and safety concerns. There were graphs and pie charts, stock photos of children playing near pools. The whole production was so over the top that a few people in the back were already snickering. Then she got to her main point, clicking to a slide with a photo of my pool that she had clearly taken from outside my fence. "This pool," she announced dramatically, pointing at the screen like a prosecutor presenting murder weapon evidence, "is technically a community asset under HOA jurisdiction. The fence doesn't meet our standards, the maintenance schedule has not been submitted to the board, and the owner has repeatedly refused to comply with our bylaws." A few neighbors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some looked at me with curiosity, probably wondering if there was any truth to her claims. I raised my hand calmly. "Karen, can I ask you a question?" She looked annoyed but nodded, clearly expecting me to dig myself deeper. "Do you got any documentation showing that my property is actually part of this HOA?" Her face went red. "Everyone in this subdivision is part of the HOA. That's how subdivisions work." "That's not what I asked you," I said evenly, standing up and walking to the front with my binder. I laid out the documents on the table where everyone could see, spreading them out methodically. This is the original property survey from 1978, before the subdivision existed. It showed the HOA boundaries as filed in 2010. And this is the HOA's own incorporation paperwork from 15 years ago. I pointed to the clearly marked boundary line, the one that curved around my lot like water around a rock. My property predates your HOA by over 30 years. It was specifically excluded when the subdivision was created because it was already there. I'm not a member, I've never been a member, and I have zero legal obligation to follow your rules. The room went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Karen's face cycled through several shades of red, from pink to crimson to something approaching purple, before she snatched up my documents. "These are forgeries," she shouted, her voice crackling slightly. "He's committing fraud, these can't be real." One of the board members, a retired lawyer named Mr. Patterson, leaned forward to examine the documents more closely. He picked up the property survey, held it up to the light, examined the county recorder's stamp and signature. "Karen, these have official county recorder stamps. They look legitimate to me. See the embossed seal here?" "I don't care." Karen was practically vibrating with rage, her hands shaking as she held the papers. "This is unacceptable. He cannot just ignore our authority. I'm calling the police." And she did, right there in the middle of the meeting, pulled out her phone and dialed 911, her voice getting louder and more frantic as she claimed I was presenting fraudulent documents and trespassing on HOA business. Several board members tried to calm her down, but she waved them off, pacing back and forth while she talked to the dispatcher. The whole room watched in stunned silence. I just sat back down and waited, completely calm. I had nothing to hide. It took about 25 minutes for 2 officers to arrive. They looked less than thrilled to be there, clearly having expected an actual emergency based on Karen's frantic call. One was older, probably close to retirement, and the other looked like he was fresh out of the academy. Karen immediately launched into her explanation before they'd even fully entered the room, waving her hands and talking about fraud and fake documents and community safety. The older officer held up a hand to stop her. "Ma'am, slow down. What exactly is the emergency here?" "He is presenting forged county documents to avoid HOA compliance. He is breaking the law." The officer turned to me, his expression already suggesting he knew this was going to be a waste of his time. "Sir, can I see these documents?" I handed over the binder calmly, and he examined the stamps, the signatures, the official seals. He ran his finger over the embossed county recorder stamp, checked the dates, flipped through the pages methodically, and then he pulled out his phone and made a call. I assumed it was to the county recorder office or something, or maybe a supervisor, and the conversation was brief, mostly listening on his end with a few and okays. He hung up and turned to Karen, his expression neutral but his tone firm. "Ma'am, these documents are authentic. They are on file with the county recorder's office. According to county records, this property is not part of your HOA. It was excluded when the subdivision was created." Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "But that can't be right. He has to follow our rules. Everyone has to." The second younger officer added, "Ma'am, this is a civil matter, not a criminal one. 911 is for emergencies only. Calling us out here for an HOA dispute is a misuse of emergency services." "But he—" "Ma'am," the older officer interrupted, his patience now clearly wearing thin, "this gentleman has no legal obligation to follow your HOA rules. His property is not part of your association. If you continue to send him violation notices or harass him about this, he could potentially file harassment charges against you or pursue legal action. Do you understand this?" The room was dead silent except for a few poorly suppressed snickers from the back row. Someone's phone camera was definitely out, and I had a feeling this was going to be all over the neighborhood Facebook group within the hour. Karen stood there, her face now pale instead of red, looking around the room for support that clearly was not coming. Even her usual allies were suddenly very interested in their phones or the floor or literally anything except making eye contact with her. The officers gave me a sympathetic nod and headed for the door. As they left, I heard one mutter to the other, "HOA disputes, man, every damn time." The board members sat in stunned silence for a long moment. Finally, Mr. Patterson cleared his throat and said, "Karen, I think we need to table this discussion and reconvene after we've had time to review the situation privately." "Table it? We need to—" "Karen," his voice was firm now with an edge I hadn't heard before. "You just called the cops on a homeowner who is not even in our HOA. You've been sending him violation notices and threatening property liens for property we have absolutely no authority over. This is actually a serious legal liability for the entire board. We need to discuss this privately before we proceed with anything else." Karen looked around the room one more time, clearly expecting someone, anyone, to back her up, but no one did. Even her usual supporters were avoiding her gaze. The woman who had been her loudest cheerleader on Facebook was suddenly fascinated by her fingernails. The meeting dissolved into awkward small talk as people filed out. Several neighbors stopped by to look at my documents, and a few even apologized for doubting me or for liking Karen's Facebook posts. Someone asked if they could get copies just in case Karen tries this with anyone else, which honestly seemed like a fair concern. I packed up my binder and headed home, feeling vindicated but also a little exhausted. Drama is fun to watch, less fun to be in the middle of. A bit later I got an email notification about another emergency board meeting. The agenda had exactly one item: discussion of recent enforcement actions and board leadership. I did not attend that one. I figured my presence would just be unnecessarily inflammatory, and besides, I made my point already. I heard through the neighborhood grapevine, specifically from Mr. Patterson's wife, who apparently felt bad about the whole situation, that Karen had been asked to step down from her board position, and when she refused, claiming she had done nothing wrong and that I was the one causing problems, they held a vote of no confidence. It was unanimous. Every single board member voted against her. She apparently resigned in a fury, knocking over a chair on her way out and yelling something about how they had all regret this. The classic Karen exit. The HOA also mentioned they would be reviewing their procedures to prevent similar issues in the future, which I figured was lawyer speak for, "We're making sure Karen cannot do this to anyone else." Several neighbors stopped by over the next few weeks, some grinning, others looking embarrassed. A few admitted they had doubted me at first, but now appreciated seeing Karen's ego deflated. One neighbor even brought me over a 6-pack of beer as an apology for believing Karen's Facebook stuff. I finally had a moment to relax without constantly checking my mailbox for threatening letters, no more violation notices, no more panicked Facebook posts, no more emergency meetings, just peace, my pool, my fence, my backyard, and the quiet satisfaction that Karen had learned the hard way that not everyone bends to her will just because she speaks loudly and with confidence. Turns out, paperwork beats PowerPoint presentations every single time. And the next one is a funny petty revenge story that is titled, "Don't pay your bill? I will remove your door." So my friend has a glass business, replaces broken doors, windows, etc. One time, this Donna shop got broken into and they hired him to replace their broken glass door. My friend's business replaced it and billed him. He viewed the invoice and didn't pay for weeks. My friend kept following up and he would ignore him, never paid the invoice. He ended up blocking my friend's number. My friend calls from a different number and says, "If you don't pay, I will remove the door." Ignored again, my friend waits until Friday at midnight and goes to remove the door himself. Alarms go off, store wide open in the middle of a busy street. Well, all of a sudden he has 30 missed calls from the shop owner begging for the door back and that he'll pay the invoice. He told him he can hire another company to install a new door for him and he doesn't want his business. Shop owner was begging and my friend did not budge and blocked his number. And yeah guys, thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to not miss my daily uploads and I will see you again tomorrow.